Hi, this is Joel from DriveX. We're here at a residential client working on their 2018 Cadillac Escalade. We're here to repair their front brakes. First thing we're going to do is grab our jack and get our jack stands for safety purposes. Put one jack on one side, another jack on the other. And the next thing we want to do is ensure that we're jacking the vehicle up from the proper manufacturer jack point. Usually those are located right behind the front door and right in this part of the back door. Then we'll place the jack under the frame and let the jack down. And then we'll proceed to do the same thing on the other side of the vehicle. Another thing you want to know is always have your jacks at the same level. Uneven jacks can cause the vehicle to fall off. The next thing we're going to do is grab all the tools we need to remove the wheels and all the brake parts. After we do that, we'll start taking everything apart and you can see the step-by-step process. We're grabbing our 1/2 inch deep metric sockets. I just grab all of them just to make sure I have every single socket that I need. Get our ratchets and any sign of extensions. And we're also going to grab an impact to remove the wheels. Another big thing is lubricating your brake caliper pins. We're going to also lay down a safety protection mat for any kind of brake grime or grease that could fall on the ground. The next thing we want to do is remove this center cap. If they have an anti-theft socket or lug nut, make sure you check the glove box, center console, or back compartment of the vehicle. If you can't locate it, ask the customer. We're also going to ensure the proper fitment of our deep socket. And we're going to spin it around till we get the proper seat. Next, we're going to use our 1/2 inch impact. And we're going to start removing our wheel. Now we're going to put on a set of gloves just to ensure we don't get the interior of the customer's car dirty. And next thing we're going to do is go get inside the vehicle and open the hood. We open the hood to check the master cylinder to make sure it's not too full before we start doing our brake job. Because if you start retracting the pistons on the brakes, then it'll overflow and get all over the customer's vehicle. And I think we're at a very good level. Right here is a good level because once we push the pistons back in, it'll be back up at the top at the full line. Now we're going to carefully remove the customer's rim tire from the vehicle. We're going to roll it to the front of the vehicle and carefully set it down. Now the next thing we're going to do is turn the wheel this way so we can access these bolts that are on the back holding the caliper bracket and the caliper in place, and it'll be easier to remove them because the wheel will be turned this way. It gives you more access and leverage to remove all the bolts in the caliper bracket and caliper. Now we're going to start the vehicle and turn the wheel all the way to the left. Shut the vehicle off and you can start removing the parts on the brakes. Now we're going to grab a couple rags, our lights, just so we can see just in case it's dark, as well as some brake parts cleaner. It's always good to ensure you spray and clean the pistons and the brake parts off before putting them back on. Next thing you want to grab is a wire brush, just to clean anything that has a lot of buildup on it. Now we're going to find the right size sockets to remove our caliper pins. Ensure you always place these bolts in a magnet tray. They don't roll away or you lose them. Break the next bolt loose. We'll then remove the caliper. And if it is hard to remove, you might need to get a pry bar to pry the caliper over. which it looks like that's the step we're gonna have to take. Now that we have our pry bar, find a good access point to now push the caliper top and then bottom over. The caliper should now be loose enough to remove. And if it's not, you might need to grab a hammer placing it on the top control arm. They also sell a tool that hooks on the spring or the side of the control arm to help you with holding the caliper in place so it doesn't fall or cause damage to the brake line. We're gonna push the little pins down to make it easier to remove the brake pad. Now that we remove the brake pad, remember there's two different types of brake pads on this car. There's the type for the piston side and the outer side. The next step I usually take, but this is technician preference, is removing these two pins and cleaning the pins and reinstalling them. So now we're gonna wipe off the old grease and grime, ensuring that it's nice and clean. So when we do our new grease, the piston slides in and out correctly. This ensures proper brake function. Reinstall it. Move it around, make sure it moves in and out freely, and then repeat. Clean all your grease and grime off, grease it up nice and well. And now you're good. If your brake pads don't come with new brake hardware, make sure you clean your hardware really well with a wire brush. Now we're gonna remove the caliper bracket. Use a good size 1/2 inch breaker bar or 1/2 inch ratchet. This will help you get this off freely. It's a good thing to have some decent leverage. Don't remove the bottom bolt just yet. Remember to break the top one loose as well. Placing our bolts in our magnet tray. Now we're going to grab our Torx bits to remove the rotor. Now we're going to grab our Torx bit, an extension, and we're going to remove our rotor. The next step I like to do is usually wire brush this whole area off to prevent rust and a big corrosion from starting for the next guy when he goes to remove the rotor. Make sure you have the proper piston caliper retracting tool. This will ensure you don't cause damage to the caliper itself. Using a C-clamp or something like that on one or the other side can cause one piston to pop out of the caliper. I usually use a brake pad, set it in here like this. I take my caliper retracting tool and I retract them till they completely stop. So now that we've finished all these steps, we're gonna go get our new brake parts and start reinstalling them on the customer's vehicle. Now we're gonna remove our rotor out of the box. We're gonna remove the packaging off the rotor. And then we're gonna spray off all the protection oil that's on the rotor. This can cause damage to your brake pads, squealing, or abnormal brake wear. This is brake parts cleaner. There's chlorinated and non-chlorinated. It's basically your preference on what you want to use. Then take a rag, wipe off all the excess brake clean, And now you're ready to reinstall your rotor. Now we're going to reinstall our rotor and our Torx. Push the rotor all the way against it. Lightly turn your screw in. And now the next step is installing our new brake hardware. Good thing that they came in the box. Before installing your brake hardware, always make sure it matches up to the old stuff. And it looks like it's going to be a great fit. And make sure they're properly seated. Remove your brake pads out of the packaging. It's also a good thing to inspect your brake pads for delamination. Sometimes this happens when you buy them from certain parts suppliers. Now we know this is our inside pad and this is our outside pad. Always reinstall them correctly because it can cause brake caliper failure. The next step we're going to take is reinstalling our caliper bracket. We're going to grab our bolts that we put Loctite on. Then we're going to grab our next bolt and screw it in a little bit, because when you tighten these down, it won't cause damage to the top side of the rotor. And then we're going to re-tighten down our bolts. It's really good to make sure you hit them with an impact or a torque wrench to make sure they're securely tightened. A little technique I've learned over the years is to put a little bit of brake grease on each side of the pad and then reinstall them. It'll prevent a little bit of brake noise. Not too much though. And now it's time to reinstall our brake caliper. Always ensure this line isn't twisted or bent. Grab your bolts out of your magnet tray. Get your next bolt out of your magnet tray. And then grab the right size socket to retorque them down. Now we're going to turn the wheel back straight to make sure it's easier to reinstall the wheel. Then shut the vehicle back off, and now we're ready to reinstall our wheel. Lifting our wheel into place, I usually place 2 lug nuts on so the wheel doesn't walk out. We're going to grab our proper socket size to make sure it doesn't strip the head of the nut out. Now we're going to tighten the wheel back down in a star pattern. It will make sure the wheel is evenly tightened down. And then repeating the pattern. Now we're ready to reinstall our center cap. Usually they line up a certain way. Ensure that that's the case. They'll have a mark indication showing where they go. And usually that's placed somewhere like right here on the vehicle. Wipe all your grease and grime off. And always leave things cleaner than when you started. Repeat this step on the other side, and next we'll show you our closing procedures. Here's the closing procedures that we do before finishing out our brake job. First thing is sliding our jack back under our manufactured jack point, and then removing our jack. Don't twist the jack too fast because it'll cause the vehicle to slam down. And now let's repeat the same process on this side. Now our next step is going to be making sure our brake fluid is at the right capacity level, which it is. It looks great and it's nice and full. Next, we're going to pump out the brakes, go on a test drive to ensure the vehicle is safe for the customer to drive. And you do that by pressing firmly on the brake pedal. Do it multiple times. Once the brake pedal seems stiff, then it's safe to drive. Next, we're going to go on a test drive to ensure that it's safe for the customer to drive. Thank you for watching this brake tutorial. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us and have a wonderful day.